what kind of demos are you doing?
Showing people the system, saying, okay, well, if you're trying to, you figured out it's a soft sell, right? So if this is going to work for someone, then great. I'm not going to try to get all aggressive and convince them. I mean, if I really believe firmly that it'll help someone and they need to get a little bit out of their own way, I try to help them do that. But that's about as hard as I push. So the demo is, hey, here's a system. Here's how you can, start the conversation with your client. Here's the technology. Here's the training. Here's the support. And if this sounds like some or all of this going to work for you, great. So
have you finished it? I mean, I know you were working on, finalizing it, getting the.
Yeah. We're yes, we are in the. There are a couple of things that we're going to do a revamp based in significant part on our conversations, you and I. You've caused me to go. It was only half joking when I said you're my muse. It causes me to you forced me to look at it from the outside and say, okay, how can I better communicate everything that's here? I mean, we have a giant toy chest, right? Yeah. And not put everything out like a yard sale, but have it in an organized, easily intelligible. And so it's causing me to go back and to look at, for example, at the launch course and to say, okay, how could we improve this launch course? And we are going to pivot. We're going to, there's theory that needs to be taught, but we're going to pivot and get more tactical in the launch course. And we're going to make the certification 3 days. We'll hold it twice a year, but we're going to actually, the current plan, said the attorney, the current plan is to put the two together so that we learn facilitation skills in the book, right? But then when we get together, we focus on facilitation skill, and then we facilitate a client case. So if you can imagine, it's putting the two together, and I think that'll be.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do on my own. I'm trying to like sketch out, or I guess that's the word, sketch out the actual meeting formats for each of these different steps, right? Because you have the senior leadership team alignment workshop. Yeah. Okay. I have it now. You gave me, and I have to go through it again, but I have an agenda for that meeting. And then you have the strategic, I forgot the next one. I have to look at my notes. Then there's the strategic alignment. I don't know. It's when you, after clarity too, when you go through all that stuff, right? There was a meeting around presenting that and going through that, right?
Yes.
And then there's another meeting, right? Which is, okay, what are we going to tackle? That's that Gantt chart. You have that Gantt chart with them below. You have all the, you have the different OKRs for each goal. Each of the 24 growth objectives, you have them mapped out. So that to me is yet still another meeting or two, right? And then finally you have the sprints, you have the quarterlies, the monthlies, the weeklies, that whole series, which is where the real money is in my mind.
Mm-hmm. For both sides, right? For your client. Correct. And for you, and then that's equitable, because this is where the client is really going to start experiencing. I'm going to share. Would it be okay with you? And this is a draft. So over the weekend, I was not working, but I'm always, I love what I do. I'm always thinking.
You mean you weren't watching college football?
I did not watch college football, but I did watch the San Francisco 49ers destroy Philadelphia. Couldn't happen to a nicer team. I have a friend who doesn't literally have a Philadelphia tattoo, but pretty close. And so the first quarter, I was waiting for my phone to start buzzing. It didn't. And then in the second quarter, I started texting her like, hey, what's going on with your team? I ended up sketching out, hey, Joe, you're perfect timing. So I ended up drawing this, which is not going to make any sense to you, nor should it. But I took
that resonates a lot. I think that resonates a lot with Joe.
Joe's like, I know exactly what that says. Good morning. Yeah, if I'm going to share my screen for a sec.
He's charting everything.
So
there you go.
And this is draft. The animations don't quite work, but the concept is, okay, we have lead generator and we're bringing someone in. This is not ready. Obviously, look, there's something just dangling out in the breeze, but just conceptually. So what's our first step? We're going to create CEO clarity, right? We're moving them towards their goals, and we're going to use clarity level 1. And that's the growth conversation, right? The next thing we need to know is, this is how you see the company. How does your team see the company? Okay, senior leadership, senior team clarity, also using level 1. And I just did another alignment report for Vince that was fascinating. Now, then what are we going to need to do? Well, now that we all understand basically the 3 dimensions of growth, and we all are aligned about where the business is today, let's expand that understanding and do the deep analysis, especially in dimensions 1 and 2. Great, clarity level 2. What are we going to do next? Strategic growth plan. We have templates. I'm also, and I might be able to show you guys this morning, we have a new report. It's a strategic capacity report, and it's meaty and very detailed. Okay, great. Well, so now we have a plan, and this what isn't in this, because we're not there technologically yet, though, is the guys are busy building the API to a project management suite. Awesome. Okay. Well, then what? Okay, so now we have a plan. And to your point, Mike, we have a Gantt, and we have the key results we need to put in place, and we've broken them out over time. We're starting to implement business flow, the flash report to keep score, using that in our weekly meeting. We have the execution leadership system. And to the point you made a couple minutes ago, this is where we're going to continue to run, to facilitate with the senior leadership team to run meetings, and we're going to help them hold themselves accountable to results. Again, using through the lens of the business flow flash report. And so I just threw this together, but to show the build, we're moving from a conversation with a single person to including to involving the entire organism as we redesign the business, really literally change its DNA, create a strategic culture, a results-based culture, a winning culture.
So George, anything that's not in green is still in the process of being completed,
or? No, we have these templates. These templates exist, right? They're simply not bolted into Clarity yet. The execution leadership system exists. It's simply not bolted into Clarity yet. So these two are manual. Here, the technology is does our analysis for us. But how do we move from someone who says, "Hey, I might be interested in a conversation through," and this is, there's everything that's implied here, right? Qualifying. Are they the right client? Do they have the can do, will do attitude? Are they willing to invest? Are they willing to be transparent? All the things we identify early because our client gains clarity, but we need to gain clarity as well. As I often say, just because a CEO, so who am I working with on this case? I'm working with, doesn't matter who it is. So I'm working with someone on the case, and the CEO has said, "Hey, I don't want to involve the senior leadership team. I just want to have an understanding. I want to get a better grip on the business, and then we can talk about." So he has not yet made the decision to involve his senior leadership team. Now, do we tell him to go pound sand, that we won't help him? No. We say, okay, well, we can do Clarity level 1. We can do level 2. I can prepare a report. If you'd like, we can start looking at a plan. But until you're willing to involve your senior leadership team, you're starting the race. You're not, what's the right analogy? Until you're willing to involve your senior leadership team, you're not setting yourself up for success. So, what people contribute to, they will champion, right? People want to be heard. So anyhow, Mike, that was a long-winded answer to a simple question. All of this exists. This is baked into the technology. This is simply a question of the strategic growth plan. It's going to be released kind of today. I just have to give permission for them to release it to production. The quality assurance guys are going through it with a fine-tooth comb, and then you guys will take it out and figure out how to break it. That's how, welcome to software. Sydney broke Safari.
Will it be linked to the software itself, or is it a separate?
Yeah. No, link to the software itself. Okay. And then we'll create the APIs. I'm going to take a deep breath and say, okay, now let's run this around the track a few times. Let's run it at 7,000 RPMs for a while and get some. It's really, let's get some market experience, and so that we can come back and as a community discuss what we love and what we wish we had. And there's going to be some stuff you're like, yeah, George, I don't know why this is even here. Okay, well, everything behind the scenes has an on-off switch. So if it's confusing, if it's
can you share that with the group? Or I like a copy of this if you.
Sure. All I'll do is I'll put the branding on it and fix that animation, and you can have it this morning. Absolutely, man.
It also looks like it could be used in some kind of marketing material, right? I mean, you're kind of showing the progression. You're kind of showing the process, right?
That's exactly right.
So it'd be really cool if you could take this and put it in, I'm using old terminology, so you have to forgive me. Like either one of these little flyer sheets or, one of these trifold brochures that you can hand out, to explain it, or just a digital brochure too.
Sure. So I'm just, you see me making changes real time. So that doesn't have an animation. Start here, actually better than, it helps people understand how to start reading this, right? Yeah, I'm happy to share this with you. Boom. Okay, I'm not saying that that's perfect, but you get the picture. Because this is a different way to communicate. It'll come right up because there it is. It's a different way of communicating this.
Right.
And so here, I mean, I'm finished. I've been busy, but we're busy taking this. And I think I shared this last week with hyperlinks. Okay, here's where all the thing, here's where all the tools are. So you can just link, and it's almost like a dashboard. So this doesn't even have here. What are we gonna call this, guys? Good morning, Steve. How are you? This is the
execution pyramid. I don't know.
I like it.
The inverted execution pyramid.
And Jigagaman. Wow.
I had that once. I couldn't.
Yeah, Me Talk Pretty One. If you guys want one of the funniest Christmas, David Sedaris, his Christmas, he has a couple that are hysterically funny. Anyway, yeah, I'll share this with you when we hang up.
Okay.
So,
Hey, George
yes.
and colleague. So your little triangle there reminds me.
Sorry, didn't mean to.
That's okay. So I got a no from a proposal I made earlier this week. Yeah. Or maybe it was Friday, but anyway, and then got me thinking about a triangle, only I would flip it. My triangle's the other way up, and it's only got 4 layers, and we're all familiar with this, but it's the unconsciously incompetent, consciously incompetent, consciously competent,
massive.
Consciously. Anyway, so we're having a conversation with a business, potential client, and we don't know a priori which one of those my triangles or layers that they fit in. But in this particular case, the guy that said no to me, I think he's in the unconsciously incompetent category.
Yeah, a lot of clients are, right, and hugely successful.
Yeah, it doesn't mean they're unsuccessful. They know X, they don't necessarily know Y, and the same as us. We're in the same boat in different categories. So just wondering how this plays with trying to talk English to someone who only speaks Greek.
First of all, I need to get the bell mounted in here, because if you're going to use phrases like a priori, you're going to get a ding, ding. I mean, that's outstanding. Steve, that is a great question. So let's think about this thing hanging out in the air. It bothers me. I'm OCD. Consciously incompetent. This is where they are. Unconsciously incompetent. I have a big house. My business is clearing $2 million a year. I drive a fast car. My husband doesn't have to work anymore. I take fabulous vacations. My kids go to the best schools. I'm piling money into the bank. And am I crushing it? Well, in a way you are. Your lifestyle is outstanding. Yep. But your business is worth hugats, because you, Diane, are the business. If you get hit by a bus, you don't have a succession plan. You don't even have insurance. You got nothing, but you think you're killing it. So you're unconsciously incompetent. Now, how do we make them consciously incompetent? Now we have to, and it's like raising. I always use the analogy of raising kids because I find myself facilitating in a good way.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, let's use clarity. Even if with lead generator, you're like, wow, this thing is telling me that my strategic capacity is 52. Because all of the questions I just asked were answered were lies, and I don't disagree with the best performance. I'm just not there. Maybe I should call Steve. Maybe I should take Steve's call when he calls me, because you're going to call him right in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have consciously incompetent. Now we have to have consciously incompetent for the senior leadership team and help now we're educating them, and at the same time simultaneous alignment amongst the team, and probably smoking out dysfunction. It was Vince. I wish he was on. He was using the 5 dysfunctions tool and clarity, and it's really helped them with this in this particular case. And so now we're smoking out the senior leadership biosphere, right? Who gets along? Who's laying on the mountain looking down at the antelope? Who are the antelope? Who is helping? All the things that we want to understand. I'm just going to use all sorts of crazy analogies this morning. Go with it. Now everyone is consciously incompetent. Right? Now we're going to up their game. This is continuing the education. We're broadening our understanding of the business, and more importantly, maybe their understanding of the business. And we're starting to foster those foundational conversations. Operation sales thinks they're crushing it, and because they keep selling, the number of units, and operations is saying, yeah, that's great, but you're selling units that we can't make. So yeah, you're meeting your sales quota, but you're killing us on the back end, and that's why customer satisfaction is in the tech. All of those conversations that need to happen. So am I answering your question, Steve?
Yeah. Yep.
And then we go into, okay, now we're going to collectively have we're going to create conscious competence. All right, guys, you understand the 3 dimensions of growth, the 24 growth driving OKRs. We're going to focus on the first 16 because we want to grow this thing. I want the business to be easier to run, etc. Conscious competence. And it's not going to be at the beginning of execution, but when we get into execution and we start helping them deliver wins, start overcoming inertia. And inertia is a very real force, right? And they start, and all the things that could happen, that could happen with the team. 5 dysfunctions. Now we're getting into, we're moving the business towards mastery. And what's interesting, and this is a question, is this mastery from an internal perspective or mastery from an external shareholder's perspective? Mastery from an external customer's perspective? What is the impact of the business on the shareholders or the contribution of the business to the shareholders and the contribution of the business to it? Wow, there's a schematic here somewhere, to its customers and thereby the contribution of the business to the women and men who work in it.
Yeah, I think the answer to that question is all the above once you get to that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
just another. Oh, by the way,
I
forget what it's called in this system, but the equity value calculator.
Yeah.
So I did a video of my version of that and sent it to a potential client, and I got a email response back. Well, that was nice, and he didn't send money with it, but
but at 2:30 in the morning, who here wakes up at 2:30 in the morning basically every night? I do. Yeah, and that's when my brain's like, you didn't just have to go and get rid of a glass of water. Why don't we think about? Why don't we start thinking about things? And I would wager that your client at 2:30 in the morning is going to be looking at the ceiling, going, yeah. And so, how have you responded? If you're willing to share, how have you responded to wow?
Well, so far just perfunctory, but I think I'm going to go back with. I haven't put him through even lead gen yet. And I didn't do that to the other guy that I mentioned either. And that's probably bad on Steve. But because I think in both cases, these guys are definitely in the they don't know what they don't know category.
Steve, something you might do. So first of all, my gut, and guys, I'd love your feedback. My gut is would be to go back. If you sent me wow, what this is an individual thing. I would answer, I might answer with and what do you mean by wow? Like, mm-hmm. What caused you to say wow? And get them to start sharing.
Mm-hmm.
So Steve, I just want to clarify something. Did you say that you sent someone a video clip of you going through the equity plan portion of the Clarity One? Maybe I missed that.
Yeah, essentially, yes. Yeah.
Okay, so you kind of recorded it and you walked someone through it on, I guess, using a hypothetical situation.
Yeah, I have my own version of that, and I just plugged in some. I've had a couple of conversations with this guy, so I plugged in some numbers that I thought were kind of sort of in the neighborhood. Walked through the analysis and then showed him the progression. Okay, this is where you are, and this is the financial path you have to take to get to where mm-hmm. I'm suggesting you want to be. Yeah.
Yeah. So George, that's a good thought, a good idea, because I tried to send the Clarity One. The full version of it with instruction, because I came up with detailed step-by-step instructions. Excuse me. And I think a lot of people will not do it. It's just too cumbersome for them to sit there and But I like Steve's idea, because if you just record you doing a hypothetical case and take them through it and they see it, I think that's more powerful than saying, here, fill this out. Because I think people are, if left to their own, they're not going to do it, because I've had very few people do it. They won't do it.
They won't do it. I totally agree. They won't do it.
And then they have problems with it, right? And then they say, "Oh, I can't get it to move," and then they just dispense with the entire idea. The software doesn't work. Why would it work with you? So it's like,
it is pretty impressive. You start with one little number, or it could be a big number, but one number, and you go through all these gyrations, and you come up with this whole, okay, in year 1 we need to be here, 2 here, 4, et cetera, et cetera. So it's pretty impressive.
No, I like that idea, because I think that may be a better way of marketing it than just sending someone an email saying, hey, if you're interested in knowing how your business stands in terms of its ability to produce predictable profits and cash flow, grow, and transferability, here, take this little assessment, and you get crickets. You get crickets. I mean, no one really. I had one person do it, but that was it. But I think having a video showing them the screens as you're talking through is just a great idea.
But you've just hit on, Mike. You've just underscored. They don't know that this. It's unconscious incompetence. They think they have the world by the tail, and in many ways they do. And I love the idea of having a video saying, hey, let's just take for instance. Let's say, for instance, you've got a business doing and you could, if you can, use a real client. I mean, obviously not share who
Yeah.
the heck the client is,
Correct.
but this is a real case. So I'm working with a business owner, blank, 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 and you get down and they have to grow their business at 42.3% per year, every year for the next 5 years. Is that doable? Not so fast. And then we back
So
into.
Steve, so what platform did you use to do that, Steve? What was your platform to record?
I've adopted a tool called Dub. I think it's the best video gizmo on the market.
UB?
DUBB.
Okay. I use Vimeo, but you also, if you have a MacBook,
Okay.
if you have a Mac, it'll say Shift Command 5 and it'll record your screen.
And your voice.
You guys ready for some little feedback on everything so far?
Yeah.
Okay.
We got a drawing.
So just to go back to the dysfunction of team conversation, right?
Yeah.
And I was with the CEO on Thursday last week, and he said, you're not asking me the right questions. What do you mean? He says, you and your process. I don't want to hear process. I want to understand how your problem, how you're going to solve my issue. And however you get there, you're embarrassing me to a certain extent that you're going to talk processes, and I'm not an MBA. All I know is my gut, right? So if you go back to the 5 dysfunctions of team for a minute, and you really start looking into what it says, it's really the first one. We call it trust, but it's really absence of trust, right? So you go back to that conversation of that CEO not really willing to share with his leadership team. What's that about? It's the absence of trust, right? So when we talk about the inverted triangle, right, where you're just red is where you're talking about, and then here is the absence of trust, absence of conflict, right? So when we bring in the senior leadership team, we're drawing out conflict, right? And so how often are we able then to gain commitment? Commitment is basically the deep dive around what is that we need to focus in on. And then across here is accountability. So our strat plan is really about driving accountability. And then more important than anything else is the results. So what the CEO was telling me was that I want to see results. I want to understand how your system's going to help me with my problem that I just woke up at 2:00 and spent the last 3 hours, 2 hours ruminating over. And so his problem was sales, right? So, and he's like, I need know in the heart of hearts, I got to tell my CEO, who's just a business owner now, he's got a, operating CEO, that she's got to let go of the sales function. And they got to bring an outside salesperson in. He knows that. So that's my problem. Help me with that. Help me where I am. And then you can build the trust then to be able to kind of move through that. But until we understand that absence of trust, fear of conflict, lack of commitment, accountability, and the inattention to resolve are the problems. That's the emotional side of things. We got to stay on. We've got to stay on that point. If it's all about trying to drive process and cute. And I think there's some overlay, maybe an overlay kind of like, referring to Patrick Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions and saying, in this example, we try to resolve all the issues that dysfunctional team talk about. By using these tools, it helps us smoke out the real things that's going on. And Mr. Owner, we're here to help you. And this stuff, these are the stuff you can't handle yourself. You can't have these frank conversations with your people and come out, having, it's got to be a third party to do all this. There's some heavy lifting and the vulnerability and the absence of conflict or absence of a predisposed opinion about what we should be doing, right? So I encourage you to think about how do we infuse the emotional side of this decision-making process in that, and using Patrick Lencioni, which is a great tool because it's understood by all.
Yeah.
Drop.
Yep.
That's feedback. There you go for it.
I appreciate it, Joe. And I just took a picture of your.
I'll text it to you.
I grabbed it.
Okay, got it.
Be surprised, and as long as it's okay with you, if it shows up on the screen.
I was reminded by this guy. He's like, I've known him for a while. I said, you're trying to sell me something, but you're saying, you're not using emotions and the way it, it's like, talk to me. And this is just my own head trash of where I think I am and what credibility I have and all that. But anyway, so I thought that was a good reminder. It's not necessarily the process. Let's stay on the emotional side. And, because that's going to create the momentum, right? To get the people through the process.
It's interesting because I can't, and it's kind of become the Joe, you're making really good points. And What's interesting, this CEO has said, hey, listen, my problem is that this business owner says my CEO needs to let go of the sales function and bring in an outside person. And what we're getting, and really, is he suggesting that she carve out the sales function and hire a professional sales?
Yes.
It's a flipping fabulous. That's
a fractional.
I mean, that's advanced thinking. That is advanced thinking.
In an interim sales leader role, they got, the group that's involved with Firefly and all that sales acceleration is one of the ones I've had significant dialogue with in here locally, and that seemed to be a great product as far as interim sales leader. And then they work to replace themselves over about a year or so. And the fractional piece of that is just wonderful, I think, because it allows them to get some training wheels, and it's relatively not a huge commitment. I mean, it is dollar-wise, but it's not long-term. It's not like you're hiring somebody. I think they provide an excellent service when they find the right people.
Absolutely. I make 3 comments. One, you'll notice that throughout the system, we talk about employees and consultants. We're in the gig economy. And if you can bring in someone to jumpstart the process, someone with a proven track record,
right.
Terrific. 2, what your client is really saying is, I have an effective senior leadership and a people productive and loyal, problem. Because if you go into productive and loyal, you get into numbers and tracking. And that's spot on, Joe. Great thinking. Excuse me.
One other thing that could come up in this execution plan is the scope of services that, we should be thinking as our own, entity, depending on what you want to serve as far as your particular practice is concerned. But, there might be some help you could give us in thinking through, what are those things that you want to provide and what are the things you might want to contract out, or, when you get to that execution results, what are all the things that the owner needs to be thinking about from a service perspective, right? And then we can choose what we choose to deliver ourselves, but we need to be very open with them, because this growth costs money, right? And we're only going to be a fraction of the total cost associated with this. So we start loading up all the different subcontractors that could be, this could be, my fee may be, $60,000, but it might be another 200 on top of that, 300, depending on how they look at it too. Is it invested, or is it in a fractional person that you're going to need to either hire or, have in place anyways? So is it really incremental cost, or is it just spending money where you should have been spending it all along?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like, that's where you get into that emotional triggers. And now all of a sudden you get to that point where you're saying, I don't want to spook them with an overpriced, but I also want to make sure they're aware that this is going to come with some costs. So that's why to go back to that results is that we can demonstrate that early, low hanging fruit, create some momentum around, let's put a price increase in. Let's get some value early on. It's not budget cutting per se, but maybe it is, but to allow us to then pay for those incremental changes that really are strategic in nature. Correct?
Absolutely, man. Stepping back and saying, hey, do we have a strategy? Are we pricing to market? What? I mean, there's so many. You're absolutely right, Joe. Let's get some, and something we always talk about is getting some early wins. And if we're able to say, you haven't changed your pricing in 5 years, or you're losing your shirt on this class of customer, the things that you can find out. I'm working on a case right now where the CEO loves a certain one of the things he does, but that is a low return. Even though he loves doing it, it's a very low return where he makes the most money and has to spend the least time. So it's a compound benefit. It was something that was just kind of happening organically. And now we're looking at it saying, hey, you're doing 5 things. We need to kill 3 of them. We're going to take the one you love, and we're going to use it as a lever to increase this super efficient revenue generating, MRR generating machine. And let's view this as almost as a loss leader, right? As being an ambassador for your own brand. And so, yeah,
what I like about that, if I understand this correctly, George, what you're talking about, what I love about it is gives them a home to sit for a while and be that ambassador without a whole lot of him getting in the way of the new growth, right? So they can sit in there, they can continue to talk about the old brand and the old, the core function is, and they still feel competent. And yet, the new guys all want to work on the new shit, and they want to be able to. Sorry, it's being recorded. But I mean that's what's perfect about that situation is that the founder can be the founder. For God's sakes, there's a role there, and oftentimes they don't nearly have to be paid that much money to play the founder role, and they have a lot of fun. So we got to think emotionally how all that plays itself out in this sphere that we're working on, and keep the emotion in this thing, because I just reminded again, it's like, darn it, I'm all about trying to figure out processes and repeatability. And the other hand, sometimes just these are customized plans, so we've got to remind ourselves that's why we exist. If it wasn't an emotional decision, then there'd probably be no need for us.
No, we definitely well, we're emotional, and we're emotional animals, and people talk about being dispassionate, but I don't think anyone who's truly dispassionate is probably
a psychopath, probably a sociopath.
No, exactly. I was going to get awfully judgmental, because everyone, it's that's where frustration comes from, right? We want to control our world. We want the outcomes from whatever, pedaling a bicycle to running a business. And if we're not getting the results we want, we get frustrated. Frustration manifests as anger. Anger is not constructive. It's destructive. There's nothing motivating about anger. And that's where we start building a toxic culture. Toxic cultures at their if I could make a vast generalization, toxic cultures at their core have frustration, whether it's an individual or as an organization. And so that's, wow. No. We've gone as we do in a yeah, Mike, go ahead.
No, I'm good. I was going to say, I just got Steve's book here. I don't know if you could see it.
Cool. Steve, you have it up on the wall behind you this week.
My computer was being obstinate.
Failure day.
I'm really enjoying reading this, Steve.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's
things that Joe said, and I guess we all know this, but people don't want to buy widgets. They want to buy what the widget does. And it's the same thing with us. They don't want to buy the process. They want to buy what the process does. And the other thing that Joe said is, if you go back to the Donald Miller story brand thingamajig, the heroes, the business owner, have tangible problems, and they've got emotional or philosophical problems. So I think Joe is substantially talking about the philosophical, emotional issue in the Donald Miller construct.
Yeah, and you've heard Larry say it, and we all do it, right? Let's figure out why. Simon Sinek. I start with why. Why are we having this conversation? What motivated you to sit down with me today? Why? And if you look at the strategy planner, we're really starting with trying to identify that personal why, that ultimate personal why. Then let's put our professional why, get into how we're going to move towards the two.
Yep.
I'm waving my hands around. It's in Circle, the strategy planner. It's in Business Tools, the red toolbox in Circle. And I believe that's actually anybody watching this, guys. There are resources in our community that are free for you to use. We have free lead generator. We have tools for starting the conversation. Tools, we put a lot of. I cannot help you guys impact $1 trillion worth of businesses without then making it conditional on doing business with us. And there's a lot of really powerful free things, tools, resources, ways to engage CEOs that don't require you to ever spend a dime with us. So there's my little infomercial, public service announcement. Now, I'm going to say the key takeaway, I'm going to have to jump off in a couple minutes. So the key takeaway, Steve, you're right below me. Love the idea of recording a video that says, okay, here's a real case. And let's walk through. An equity planner is great because we're jumping into the deep end of the pool. And if you want to know how we end up here and what we're going to do about this and how we're going to get you from a 3 multiple to a 6 multiple, well, that takes a little work. And I'm happy to start that conversation with you. It's a free consultation.
Yeah. If Michael's read even the first couple of pages of my book, he probably has already got the impression that the whole idea is for business owners, for everyone, to be intentional.
Yeah.
And that tool, and that your tool, sorry, George, basically helps owners, understand where their gaps are, right? In the exit planning world, they understand their value gap in their business, profit gap in their business, and their wealth gap. And in the exit planning world, especially if you're a CEPA, if you take someone through that process, it's supposed to trigger them, right, to take action, right? Because it's only when they see those disparities, right, and those opportunities and where they are and where they need to be and how they can get there. If they don't see it, clearly, and again, the clarity basically shows them like, hey, this is where you could, more or less, this is where you are, but this is what you need. and there's a gap. So let's close the gap. So that's, the tool lends itself to that and lends itself to that well.
Well, and it's interesting because, Mike, what you just alluded to is that the market lies to business owners, right? Or the market, the market in a way lies to business owners, because if you take that, the woman's owner I referred to earlier, she is having a great life, but so the market tells her the behaviors of hers that are reinforced it's not reinforcing having a valuable business, right? It's reinforcing having a business that generates free cash flow, that may be growing, but it's the market never nudges you and says, hey, by the way, you have no transferable value or very low transferable. There's never any, it's almost like cancer, or heart disease, you don't have any manifestation until suddenly you realize that there's a lot to be done here. So, and it comes back to educating the client. And what do we start with? Well, let's threaten their dream. Let's help them understand that they have put their dream at risk, that they have put their legacy at risk, and that they can change. You can change. It doesn't take a decade. If we have 3 years, we can have a profound impact. Even 1 year, we can really, really do a lot of good work if you're willing to invest time and treasure. And if you're not willing to invest the time and treasure, then okay, well, I can help you understand. I can give you your x-ray and say, wow, you're sick here, 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 and here. And good luck. So we've got to connect with these guys. All right, gentlemen, I have got to jump off. I have to walk to an appointment. But great conversation. Thank you very much. And I will clean up this slide and I will post it and then Joe, I'm going to noodle on your 5 dysfunctions.
I just sent you the detail on that, by the way.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Thank you.
Because it talks about the, members of dysfunctional teams, what they look like, members of trusting teams, what they look like. And I'm wondering if we shouldn't come up with a checklist of, just emotionally, do they have a dysfunctional team or they do have a trusting team? And, just having them kind of self-report out is just sort of a checklist, and not in the system, but just have them kind of a tool that they diagnose their own team. That's really good Vistage stuff. So,
All right. And guys, the other thing I'm going to post is I've only ever posted, I'm going to give you guys access to the 3 checklists. That's one checklist for each of the dimensions. I'm going to get myself shot. That's probably but it's the 3 checklists. So, but I've given it to people here recently, and they're, it's revelatory. Ding, ding, ding. All right, guys. All right, listen, guys. Great conversation. You have a great week. Anything I can do to help, you know how to reach me. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Be well. Bye.